All aboard! Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, basketball fans of all ages, I am Beast Mike here. I'm now riding my train of thought. It's time for one final NBA Power Rankings. This is going to be an abbreviated version, so we're kind of speed running through it. I did make some changes, and we're going to go into them, and then the NBA playoffs. So that's going to be kind of the first half and the second half of it. And yes, these will reflect the play-in games that have already gone down, and obviously some of the teams that have already been eliminated. Let's not waste any more time and get to business with the final power rankings and the Eurostar Zombie Tier. It's going to be Washington, Utah, Indiana, Brooklyn, Memphis, Sacramento, and Dallas. So here's why I made the change of Memphis below the Kings. Memphis losing 9 of 10 will do that, and the way they ended their season was pretty miserable as it went down. Sacramento actually looks somewhat respectable down the stretch, and though it looks like 3-7 in the last 10, sure, the Kings at least looked pretty decent for the last month when it came to all these terrible teams. The 4 teams at the bottom pretty much earned their places at the bottom. All of them had the long 10-game losing streaks at minimum. Washington had 2 of them differently during the second half of the season. Indiana had a long one. Utah had a long one. The Kings obviously had one too, but after their 16-game losing streak, they improved to at least a somewhat respectable play. Some of which obviously beating up in some of these teams. But the Kings, amongst all the horrible teams in this tier, they look the best down the stretch. And for Dallas, Cooper Flagg, you get your Rookie of the Year, and you keep moving. Now, I like Indiana to not be in this tier for very long once we get a clean bill of health for Tyrese Halliburton. Once the Pacers get him back, wherever they pick in the draft, as long as they have their pick, because it's top 4 protected. That's the other part to this deal, where if it's 5th or worse, it goes to the Clippers. So that's something to worry about for Los Angeles if they can get that pick. And they may still lose their pick to the Thunder, too. That's something else to consider. The point of it is, actually, they will lose their pick to the Thunder. That pick's unprotected. So there's a lot to worry about with Indiana. But if Indiana can get that pick, they're in real good shape to make a move forward quickly. I stand by what I said previously, where no team, I think, has to win this draft lottery more so than Utah or Brooklyn. And they have to get this pick right regardless of where they stick. And for Memphis, get this pick right, please. You're probably 3rd on this particular scale, and you got to figure out John Morant and what you're going to do with him, because no one's taking that contract. How are you going to move on from John Morant? Next up, we're going to go to the UK Pacer Monkey's Paw tier. Chicago, New Orleans, Milwaukee, Miami, LA Clippers, Orlando, Golden State. So let's go through all these really quickly. With the Bulls, it was absolute misery from February onward. They were the only team in the league without a win in February, and that pretty much sealed their fate. So they went from the usually mediocre Bulls to just awful. And the only reason why they're not in Zombie tier is because, at least formally, at the end of the season, is because the 7 teams below them were just horribly bad, catastrophically so at times. For New Orleans, it wasn't as bad as it looked like it was going to be at the start of the year, which I guess is progress. And you've got a good rookie in Derek Queen. He may make all-rookie team. I almost kind of expect him to. Good on you. And you got a couple rookies that might make all-rookie team, to be honest. But for the Pelicans' sake, you got to get this pick right. And you got to get this pick good wherever you may land, because you get the swap with Atlanta. That doesn't sound all that great. So that could be pretty bad if there's some lottery unluckiness for New Orleans. In the case of Milwaukee, the best thing that happened to y'all is not your season ending, not Giannis being healthy, but the fact that Doc Rivers is not there. And it seemed like you got an actual monkey's paw with getting Doc Rivers. Yes, he's an NBA championship coach, but then he's also prone for the team self-destructing around him and his lack of accountability as it happens. It does not seem to work. And probably the best win you guys got all year is parting ways with Doc Rivers, and then you can figure out what you want to do. Firing Adrian Griffin was a terrible decision, and you guys continue to pay for it over the last year and a half. Get it right, Milwaukee, and please just free Giannis. You're better off trading Giannis at this point. For Miami, I'm glad your season ended. I really am. Like, we needed to see the Heat go out and go out sad, because that defense has been miserable pretty much since the All-Star break. It was downright disastrous. Yes, LaMelo probably should have been ejected from the tripping incident that he got fined and got a late retroactive flagrant 2 for. And sure, that's fine, but you guys should have still won that game anyway, even with that flagrant foul, because you got a 2-possession lead with less than a minute to go and found a way to bottle it and find a way to choke it. You also had a wide open man on a break and on what could have been winning play, but the pass was not made, and then Bridges made the defensive play to save Charlotte's season. I'm glad Miami's done. Clippers, you're another team that shouldn't have lost and absolutely choked your game away against Golden State. And it looked like your game was a wrap with 3 minutes to go. And instead, Steph Curry said, I'm just going to go into my bag and make every shot like I have game breakers. It was kind of wild and absurd how Steph Curry can do that, wasting a really good effort and a really good season from Kawhi Leonard. And Darius Garland showed himself to be a very good compliment to Kawhi as well. Again, you could get the Pacer pick. You could also lose your pick to the Thunder, or at least you will lose your pick to the Thunder, and it could be very high. So 2 things could be true. We'll see what happens with the Clippers. But this is a bad one. This is a bad way to go out if you're in Los Angeles. For Orlando, I think you're here because, A, I really don't want you to make the playoffs, honestly, how disappointing you guys have been. And you'd be my pick for most disappointing team in the NBA this season. Because I thought they would be a top 4 team. And instead, they have not really progressed at all. And I'd rather just see them go out and then trade Franz Wagner somewhere, anywhere out of Orlando, because him and Paolo Banchero just don't seem to fit together. You need more shooting. You need more wing presence other than Desmond Bane, and maybe a star frontman kind of wing presence to pair with Desmond Bane. I don't think they're going anywhere without such a thing. I'd rather see your season end tomorrow night in Charlotte, but we'll see if it does. For Golden State, I'm impressed that y'all came back. I really am impressed that y'all came back against the Clippers last night. That was a very good game, a very entertaining game. That championship resolve that Draymond and Steph have, hey, you showed it. Well done. Can you do it again in Phoenix? Well, I guess we'll see. In theory, Booker and Curry will cancel out, but who carries the day otherwise amongst the other role players on this team? I would give the edge slightly to Phoenix, which is why I put Golden State in this tier as opposed to the Suns. Maybe because it's at home, but I think it's barely Phoenix beating Golden State. I think it's a really good game tomorrow night, though. We're going to go to the California Zephyr and playoff tier. Phoenix, Portland, Philadelphia, Toronto, Charlotte, Atlanta, LA Lakers, Minnesota. So in this tier, it's obviously representative of the Sixers and Blazers both being in the playoffs as your 7 seeds. With the Suns, it's okay, you're here, it's fine. You got beat by Portland, which is not great, considering you had the lead that you did until Demi Avdija and company basically snatched the game from you. Not a great look. That's a pretty brutal loss to take. And honestly, your season or Golden State's ends in Oklahoma City and gentleman's sweep at the best. Maybe you get gentleman swept. I think that's the best you can hope for. But yeah, it's a pretty bad way to go and lose to the Blazers at home the way you did. You had that game on lock. For Portland, I'm proud of you. I'm legitimately proud of Demi Avdija and company, Advia and company, and how they have absolutely cooked Phoenix down the stretch. How the kids on the wing, Shaedon Sharpe and Scoot Henderson, have played relatively well. I'm impressed by what Portland has done here. They are badly under the weight classes of some of the heavyweights in the West, but the fact that Portland's even here right now compared to where they've been the last few years, I'm proud of what the Blazers have done. Good on you. For the Sixers, you've shown that if you're healthy, you're viable. But if you're not, you're in trouble. And without Embiid, that's a problem. And this series probably ends up quick with Boston, but I like how the Sixers played against Orlando. Tyrese Maxey and Edgecombe and company did their thing. That was a pretty good performance to keep Orlando at bay. A Magic team that we know is still not great at shooting, sure, but Maxey and Edgecombe did their thing, and they made sure that they were at the 7th seed, and they're going to just take the Celtics trains up to Boston, which is, I guess, pretty good. For Toronto, okay, cool. Scotty Barnes and company got here. Nice. You are a 5 seed. All right, fine. You'll play the While You Were Sleeping series East Edition, not because of time, but because I think people aren't just going to be entertained by your series with Cleveland. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe your defense will be able to carry the day, because Toronto does do that fairly well. maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe your series will be interesting with Cleveland. For Charlotte, you're incredibly entertaining. You're the opposite, I would argue, of Toronto, where you guys can shoot the lights out and beat a lot of teams based off perimeter shooting. And this is why I have Charlotte this high, because I think the Hornets can cause fits for Detroit if they are able to beat Orlando tomorrow night. And with the way that the Hornets can run and gun against some teams, if by some chance they get past the Pistons, they're going to be a real nightmare for a lot of squads just because of their play style being so fast and saying we're going to basically outscore you. For Atlanta, again, a very hot team for a lot of this. Granted, some of it being against terrible competition, but they were relatively hot. Good on you. I don't know how much they could stick to the Knicks. Can they steal one of the first two in the Garden and make things nervous for New York? I guess we'll see. And I think that's going to be the big question in games 1 and 2. Can they keep up with New York scoring-wise, and do they have enough defense and depth to make the Knicks nervous? I guess it's something to pay attention to as well. For the Lakers, you're probably only here because of the thoughts of returning Luka and the returning of LeBron. Now, Luka getting the qualifications to get awards season, okay, cool, fine. I don't love it. I guess they set a precedent of extreme circumstances. I don't love it, but it's happening. Well, Luka's going to make an All-NBA team and probably first-team All-NBA, to be honest. He doesn't win MVP, but he'll get first-team All-NBA, which will obviously mean more money when it's time for him to get paid. And for the Lakers, I don't love their chances against Houston. If they were healthy, yeah, but they're not, so that's not great. In Minnesota, you're kind of the odd man out when it comes to the title tier teams. Unfortunately, you're ninth, but you feel like a team that should be better than that. And it's probably because of the injuries to Anthony Edwards, who did not get the favorable outcome when it came to All-NBA stuff, and the awards because he only played 60 games, as opposed to 64 Luka, 63 Cade Cunningham. I'll get to Cade in a little bit. But Minnesota, being as battle-tested as they have been over the last few years, they're going to cause some fits, especially if they can get out of round one. If they can get out of round one. And now we're going to go to the VSOE title tier. Cleveland, New York, Houston, Detroit, Denver, Boston, Oklahoma City, San Antonio. Now, I'll start here with the Cavs. Similar to in the Toronto series, their defense, I think, can carry the day, of course, because they have two real monsters inside in Allen and in Mobley. James Harden, Donovan Mitchell, two guys who are not prone to showing up in the playoffs. Can you show up in the playoffs? We know a Harden clunker is coming. We know it's coming. When and how severe will it be? That's that big question for Cleveland. For the Knicks, okay, it's go time. Question, Jalen Brunson I trust. After him, can I trust the rest of you? Can I trust Bridges? Can I trust Anthony Towns? Can I trust Josh Hart? Can I trust the Knicks to have enough depth and enough defense to keep some people at bay? Was last year your shot? Questions that we need to see answered from the Knicks. And can you deal with enough physicality from especially Detroit if you see them in the conference finals? And obviously the rematch with Boston, that may be inevitable at this point. Can you deal with the physicality and Boston wanting revenge for how they went out last year? Houston, they feel like ops. They feel like ops towards each other, to be honest. They feel like they don't like each other and the chemistry just isn't there. I can't trust Houston with leads down the stretch. They have proven themselves that they are not great at it. They blew a game against the Knicks they had no business losing. They blew a game against Minnesota they really had no business losing. And with the Rockets, the lack of point guard, stable, secure point guard, that's a little bit of a concern too for me with the Rockets. Obviously, KD will be KD. Can I trust people not named Şengün to handle their business in round one against the Lakers? Now, I moved Denver ahead of Detroit for the simple reason of the fact that the Nuggets have been the hottest team in the game. And the only ones to beat San Antonio since the Spurs lost to the Knicks in mid-February. That's why Denver is ahead of the Pistons. This is not a reflection of the Pistons being a very good team, because they have been all year. And the fact that they're getting Cade Cunningham back, that's awesome. They're getting a fair fight. And we're going to get a fair fight from Detroit throughout these playoffs now that Cade's healthy. And like I said with Luka, I don't love that Cade gets this exemption when it comes to getting on the All-NBA teams and the other awards that he could potentially win. All-NBA is the one he's going to get on to. He's absolutely going to be an All-NBA player. It's just a matter of if he's going to be first or second tier. But I don't love that we're making this exception here. I like the idea that Wemby had proposed of 75%, which is actually 62 games. Well, 61 and a half technically, but 62 games as opposed to 65. I think that's fair. I would also do a minute style reflection when it comes to the time. And in minutes wise, for a full NBA 82 game season, it's 3,936 minutes. This is not including overtimes. That's 48 minutes a night for 82 games. Now, if there are OTs, I would say, okay, that can eat into it. And you play 75% of these minutes, 2,952 minutes. You play 75% of the 3,936, you're good to go. If there are overtime games, whatever time you accumulate in the overtimes, that counts towards the 2,952 that's eligible for the awards. And that works. I think that would be a very reasonable thing to do because obviously there's enough OT games where you can carry over and get minutes in there and keep things moving. All the minutes add up. It rolls over. It works out, I think. I think that's a reasonable way to do it. I think it's a reasonable way to go about this. Now, obviously, not everyone's going to play 48 minutes a night, obviously. But even 40 works. And I think that would get the job done for a lot of different people. And a lot of different people will be worthy of awards in a very reasonable way. Anyway, back to Detroit and back to their chances of winning the championship. I think they're actually pretty good. I think the Pistons have a real shot of winning the title. And yes, they could see Boston. And the real question will be, does Detroit have enough shooting to keep up with what Tatum and Brown are going to be able to do? And physically speaking, I think they can absolutely give anybody trouble because of how physical they can play. And they do play playoff style ball every single time. They could absolutely do that. I just wonder if they're going to have enough offense to keep up with the likes of Boston if they see them in the conference final. Anybody else needs something, Detroit's absolutely beating them. Back to Denver. And again, you are ahead of the Pistons because of how hot you were and the fact that you beat San Antonio and you're the only ones to do so since the Spurs had their long 11-game win streak. And they took the hottest team in the league mantle away from San Antonio in what was maybe the best NBA game of the regular season, where Wemby and Jokic went bar for bar with each other. And for a lot of this time period, the Spurs were the better team. They just didn't close. That's pretty much as simple. Now, sure, 2 of the 3 Denver wins down the stretch against San Antonio were against a Wemby-less Spurs team. Understood. But the one time that Wemby did play, and it was a straight-up game, Denver got the job done. Denver took care of business. Jokic was masterful. So was to a lesser extent, Jamal Murray, and Denver made things happen. Denver got it done. That would be an amazing round 2 matchup, but Denver got a horrible draw with dealing with Minnesota round 1, and I'll get to that later because that could be legitimately awesome, and I expect it to be 6 or 7 games. If it's a gentleman's sweep or better, I would be stunned regardless of who wins it. Boston, you are kind of sort of back, and that's horrifying for everyone else. The fact that they're fairly healthy and they have an absurd amount of depth, and they can basically beat you the same way they won the title. Basically outshoot you and have a whole lot of dudes that can kill you from the perimeter. You live and die by it, and physicality inside, they don't really have it, sure. But if you live long enough and well enough from the perimeter, plus you have 2 top 15 guys in the league, that they can absolutely take care of business, and they do play some good enough defense, especially on the perimeter. They're going to be nasty for everyone, obviously. I guess the question will be simple. Is Jason Tatum really ready for this physically? Mentally, sure. But is he really ready for this physically to handle the grind that will be NBA playoff-style basketball? That's going to be the question here. Oklahoma City is the favorite, and they should be. The reason why I have San Antonio ahead of them is how dominant San Antonio has been over the last 2 months. But when it comes to the Thunder, they should be the favorite. No question. The reigning champions have proven as such. They are basically healthy now. Jalen Williams is back. It doesn't seem to be too much drama from him. And I think this is going to be a fairly tougher route for them. But they got a good draw where they don't have to deal with Denver, Minnesota, or San Antonio until the conference final. That is a really, really good draw. The fact that they got on their side of things, Houston, whoever wins the play-in, not that it was going to matter, the Lakers, and that's going to be a really good draw as opposed to what's going to be a bar fight. Not named Portland, really, but everyone else on the Spurs side of the bracket. And speaking of San Antonio, all right, it's time for the kids to grow up. What you got, San Antonio? Yes, De'Aaron Fox has been in the playoffs. Yes, Harrison Barnes is the champion. Yes, Luke Cormitt is a NBA champion. Okay, understood. Not much experience from the other guys in question. and with the exception of Fox, in the top, I would say 8 guys on the team in terms of production, and maybe Barnes, I guess, is 8th. They don't really have the genuine experience. Okay, we've heard it all before. But question, why should that matter with the way San Antonio's generally played? With the way the Spurs have moved? It hasn't been Wemby all year, and San Antonio's won some games and beaten some teams without Wemby consistently. They've been very good. The fact that they have an alien on their team makes them an instant threat and a super contender to win this NBA championship regardless of experience. This San Antonio team absolutely has shown themselves against the top-level competition here. The only exception really being Denver, but again, they were 1-1 when Wemby played against the Nuggets this year, as opposed to a lot of teams don't have major problems against Denver. Minnesota, yes, has given San Antonio problems, but they're the only ones that have really given them problems when Wemby and company have been fully around. Now for a not-so-technically difficult set of NBA playoff predictions. I'm going to get through the 1-8 matchups really quickly, both of them, and this shouldn't be too long in either case. In the case of the Thunder, I think they're probably sweeping either of these teams. It's a gentleman's sweep regardless of who wins between Golden State and Phoenix. I think the Suns are going to win, but it doesn't really matter to me. Whoever sees the Thunder are going to get gentlemen swept at best. I think that's the best you can really hope for here. And for Detroit, if it's Charlotte, to be honest, I think Charlotte can take them to 6 because of their shooting, because of their ability to go up and down and basically race you to a $130 and see if you can keep up. I think that's going to be a really fun series if it happens. If it's Orlando, they're going to probably get swept. I think this is probably an easy, maybe Orlando gets 1, but this feels like this is going to be a quick 4 or 5 game series if they have to see the Magic in round 1. And I'm going to stay in the East for the first part of round 1 of these playoffs. Sixers, Celtics, and I like the way the Sixers played on Wednesday. I thought it was a good performance. Maxey and Edgecombe and Paul George didn't look like playoff P or pandemic P or play-in P, I guess you could call it. He looked somewhat respectable here in that game against Orlando. Okay, good, fine. When it comes to Boston, the fact that the Celtics have played as well as they have all year, and Jaylen Brown being an MVP candidate, absolutely needs to be first-team All-NBA this year, the way he has produced. And Tatum has been balling out, has played relatively well this season. Good on you. And when it comes to this season series, they're 2-2, and it's very complicated with how they got here. For example, Paul George didn't play in any of these games. But then again, neither did Jason Tatum. Joel Embiid didn't play in the last 2 of these games, the 2 March ones. They played 2 games early, and they were both close. The third game was also relatively close, and the Sixers won 2 of the first 3, the odd number games. And the last one was a easier win for Boston. Maxey played relatively well, but ultimately it was a lot of Boston taking care of business with their secondary type of guys, with Neemias Queta having a career night, which was a little weird, but it happened. And yeah, he had 27 and 17. My goodness, Andre Drummond, what were you doing? Anyway, I'm going to go Boston in 5. The Embiid injury is a huge alarm, obviously, and they don't have an answer for Joel Embiid in the paint if he were to play. The problem is the appendectomy might keep him out for a while, if not the whole series, and that's no bueno for me. With Jason Tatum kind of back in game shape, and with Jaylen Brown and the way that Boston can shoot, I think this is a 5-game series. The Sixers are doomed and cooked and done. I think this is going to be a Boston win in 5. Next up, we're going to stay in the East, obviously, with the Knicks and the Hawks, the 3-6 matchup here. And like I said, for the Knicks, it's go time. It's absolutely time to show what you've got here, to show that you can make a run with the way that your team has been. You're built, so they would claim, and so they would tell us, that you're built ready to win the title. Are you? I guess we need to see it. Jalen Brunson has had a very good year. Cool. We've also gotten a breakout year from Jalen Johnson if you are Atlanta. Maybe he wins most improved this year. I think that's on the board with the way he has balled out. Now, in this season, they are 2-1 Atlanta, but the last game and the only game they played since the All-Star break was actually last week, where they played the Knicks and the Hawks did, and the Hawks lost by 3. Okay, cool. The other 2 games, relatively easy win for Atlanta just after the New Year, And just after Christmas, so a week prior to that, not even that long, the Knicks won by 3. So the Knicks have won 2 very close games, and the Hawks won the other one in what was a relatively comfortable way. I think Atlanta can give them trouble. I think Atlanta can give them some issues, especially if they're able to defend, which I would trust they're able to. Jalen Johnson, like I said, has shown himself to be a very much most improved player candidate because he has been tremendous all year with a 22, 10, and 9 performances overall. That's good stuff. And then this whole Karl Anthony Towns part of this. A couple of days ago, he's been ruled out for the regular season finale. He was with a right elbow injury. Can Towns play, and will he play in this series? I would imagine him to. I'd like to think they're resting him just to keep him ready to go for the playoffs. I think the Knicks are going to win this series. I think it's a tough 6-gamer, but I do think the Knicks will find a way to get out of Atlanta and win 2 of the 3 in the A, if you will, and they will move on to round 2 of the Eastern playoffs. Give me Knicks in 6. Cavaliers and Raptors, 2 very good defensive teams have shown themselves to be, and 2 offenses that I trust Cleveland's to an extent. Toronto's, I am a little concerned about. In the case of Cleveland, believe it or not, they're actually 4th best in offense, where the Raptors are nearing the bottom 10. So much so that they're barely outside of it. That's not great. But obviously, like I said, defenses are where these teams' breads are generally buttered. And when it comes to that, Toronto's actually a top 10 defense. So I think that works here. Cleveland's kind of mid-tier in terms of defensive rating, in terms of points against. When it comes to the Raptors, Scotty Barnes, can you introduce yourselves to the world as a big-time player, as a player that's willing to take the next step? I could ask the same for Brandon Ingram. Can you take that next step forward? We kind of need you to do that to move forward. I think that's going to be a big question here. I would like to think Donovan Mitchell and James Harden have learned from their playoff errors and playoff follies, especially Harden. Then again, I don't trust Harden too. No one does. In the regular season, it was all Toronto. They won all 3 games. 2 of them were super early. Actually, to be honest, all of them were super early. And all of them were before Christmas Eve, or actually even before Thanksgiving, which is really surprising. But Toronto won all 3 games. Naturally, these teams are going to be entirely different with Harden there as opposed to him not being there for any of these games in question. With that in mind, I think this will be a very interesting defensive series, and I'm actually going to take Cleveland in 6 games. I think this will be James Harden, who's shown himself at times to be decent. I don't trust him in a Game 7, but I think Cleveland will prevent that Game 7 from happening. Give me Cleveland in 6 games, and will be, I think, a very defensive series. And now we're going to go to the Western Conference. Like I already did the Thunder, so we're going to do it to 2-7. I'll be quick with Spurs Blazers. This is a mismatch, and I think San Antonio proved as such when they rested Victor Wembanyama last week against Portland and won the game relatively easily. This feels like this is going to be a pretty easy 4-5 gamer with Portland. Maybe Portland gets one. I just don't see. I just don't see it. I just don't see how they do it. I like Advia. Denver Advia's played well. San Antonio won 2 of 3 games here. The Portland win actually happened shortly after New Year's, right before San Antonio went on, or actually a month before San Antonio went on their tear, and where San Antonio was looking kind of okay, whatever, and then they went on an absolute tear at the end of February, or at the start of February, I should say, and then they ripped right through the rest of the regular season like this, where 3 of the losses were Denver, the other was the Knicks, and nobody else was beating them. That includes Portland on April 8th, where Wemby didn't play, and neither did Stephen Castle, and the Spurs still went easily. That was not great for the Blazers. This feels like a 5-game series. I'll give Portland 1, but that's about it. And San Antonio should win in the gentleman's sweep without much problem. Next up, Rockets-Lakers. And to be honest, if Luka and Austin Reeves were healthy, and I don't expect them to until maybe late in the series, if we get that far, I think that is that's where the Lakers could win, but I just don't see it. I just don't see how this is going to go well for LA at all. And it's almost unfair to do tail of the tape when it came to the regular season stuff because Luka and Reeves are probably missing the entire series. And maybe at best, Luka returns at, say, Game 5 or Game 6 if we get that far. I think Houston could get this to 5, but I think that's as far as we go because I don't think Lakers have the firepower. And LeBron will probably get one based off of sheer will. But I think that's all he gets. Rockets in 5. I don't trust Houston at all. They just got the best matchup at the right time. So I think this is going to be a relatively easy draw for Houston. Rockets in 5. And now to the main event of round 1. Nuggets versus the Timberwolves. A Denver team that has a bunch of aura, as we know, versus a Minnesota team that is unafraid of them. And a Minnesota team that will absolutely want the smoke against them. We saw this happen a couple years ago. The reigning champion Nuggets faced Minnesota, had them 3-2, and then Minnesota nuked them in Game 6, and then went to Denver and came back on them in Game 7. In a situation where, other than Jokic and Murray, nobody else for Denver was really showing up, and then Edwards and company showed out, and then showed Denver out of the playoffs. This may be the most evenly matched round 1 series in the NBA by a wide margin. I think this is going to be an incredibly fun series. We've seen them play an incredible Christmas game, and that's another game of the year candidate between Denver and Minnesota. The Christmas showdown where Edwards and Jokic were having masterclasses, and they were able to pull away. Denver was, because, and actually they didn't pull away. They only won by 4. And part of that because Anthony Edwards fouled out. So it was a incredible game between these two teams. They are 3-1 Denver in terms of their season series, but Minnesota won the last one. And that last one was on March 1st, as Minnesota was one of the few teams to actually beat Denver since the start of March. And that might have been right around the time where I wanted to see Denver improve. I wanted to see Denver get back to what they were, which was Jokic and Murray playing God mode and everybody else kind of getting in where they fit in. Well, Denver did that, and Denver has been absurdly great since the start of March. And I think this is going to be an incredible series. I certainly hope Anthony Edwards is 100% for it, because he's going to do everything he can to knock Denver out. And Minnesota, I think, is going to absolutely take one of the first 2 games in Denver. I definitely believe that. But I think Denver responds in kind. I think this goes 7 once again, and this time the Nuggets get it done in 7. But I think it's going to be an incredible series. I am so looking forward to Denver, Minnesota, and I think that's a 7-gamer. 100% has to be. Let's go to round number 2, and I think it's going to be a way more entertaining situation in the Eastern Conference. Cavaliers and Pistons in round 2, I think, is going to be a very physical series, because we know both these teams play really good defense against each other. They were tied 2-2 in the regular season, and 3 of the 4 games were close. The one game that wasn't was an easy beating by the Cavaliers. This was very early in the season, where they blew Detroit out. Okay, fine. That happens early. It was October 27th. So we're talking the first few games of the season. The other 3 games, Detroit win by 4, Detroit win by 3 in overtime, Cleveland win by 4. That's how good this series was, at least for the latter 3 games. And with Harden obviously being there for the last 2 of these games, I think we're going to get another fun series. And I guess the question will be simple. Can Detroit keep up from the perimeter? And can James Harden avoid the playoff swoon that we're accustomed to seeing? Can the Cavaliers as a whole avoid the playoff swoon that they have had in round 2s for a long time now? My answer is going to be no. It's not going to be for lack of trying. I just don't think they're going to win this series. I think Detroit's just slightly better. Give me Pistons. It's going to be a tough, physical 6-game series, but I'm going to take the Pistons here, and I think it'll be a very fun game. I don't think we're going to get a truly brutal, vintage James Harden disaster class, but the 2 for 11s that we're used to seeing. But I think Harden will struggle at different points in the series. I would say Game 5 of this series, where he kind of crumbles and things go bad, and then Detroit takes care of it in 6. So give me the Pistons to go to the conference finals. But which team from the Atlantic Division in the NBA will they have to face? Will they face the Knicks or the Celtics? And when it comes to this series, it's going to be very different, because Jason Tatum only played in the last game of which, but it was a Knicks win. And the way the Knicks did it was impressive. And it actually had some stakes, because the Knicks had to win this game to avoid being the 4 seed. So they actually had to win this game. It was last week, and it was a very impressive performance for the Knicks to come back and win by 6. Good stuff there. The tail of the tape here is actually Knicks 3-1. But again, Tatum only played in the last one. So that's something to consider here for this series. Whereas Boston and Tatum was actually very good in that game, 24, 13, and 8. He was very good. It was Josh Hart carrying the day for the Knicks in said game. The other 3 games that the Knicks and Celtics played, one was an easy win for the Knicks early on, the week before Halloween. One at the start of December where Boston won, and one where it was a blowout for the Knicks in the early February. So that was a pretty interesting set of games between these two teams. But now that Tatum's back, and now Boston's running it back with a whole lot of shooting as they rebuilt their roster on the fly, and Vucevic being there. Vucevic versus Anthony Towns is going to be an interesting matchup. How will the Knicks be able to deal with Brown and Tatum both being a full go? I think that's going to be another entertaining situation. I don't think Boston's going to blow games like they did in games 1 and 2 last season against the Knicks, where this series probably should have ended for the Celtics in 5. Instead, the Knicks stole 2 games in Boston and then handled it from there. Give me Boston to win this series in 7 games. I think this is going to be a fun 7-game series between these two teams. Give me Boston to win Game 7 at home at TD Garden, as both teams will take this Acela back and forth, I'd imagine, for this series to their respective arenas. And now let's get to the Western Conference and their round 2s. First, Oklahoma City, Houston, as these two teams played each other to start the regular season as the Thunder got their banners. And they played a tremendous game to start the year and kind of set the tone for the NBA back on Peacock and getting round ball rock back, because we do love us some round ball rock. If we don't love round ball rock, I'm sorry, you guys have deprived yourselves or something. I don't know. The point of it is, fun game between these two teams to start the year. And the tail of the tape for this particular series, they haven't played since the start of February, and the Thunder are 2-1 in terms of this. The first game was the relatively close double overtime battle that was. The second game was an easy win for the Thunder. The third game, and the most recent, being the Rockets taking care of business by 6 on February 7th. Now, how they did it, you could argue, is, okay, no SGA and no Jalen Williams. It's got something to do with it, I'm sure. But now that the Rockets are going to deal with a fully healthy Thunder, they have shown themselves that they can play bar for bar with them mostly. Jalen Williams obviously being the exception. I think this is going to be a pretty good game, but how does Houston stop SGA? That's a major concern for me here. I think it's going to be Thunder in a 6-game series. I think Durant will steal a game. I think Houston will steal another one somewhere. But give me a 6-gamer for Oklahoma City as they move on to the conference final. It won't feel like a 6-game series, but I think that's what we get here. And now the main event in the second round. Nuggets, Spurs, and the two hottest teams in the NBA since really the start of February, and especially March in the case of Denver, where they have absolutely destroyed a lot of teams and have played incredible games against each other, 2 of them really. One with Wemby, one without him. Denver won both of them, and they were very entertaining games from start to finish, for the most part. Now, the last one, the Spurs didn't take it seriously at all, to be honest. It was still a relatively close game, and Denver didn't take it as seriously as they needed to either. But Denver jumped out in front of San Antonio by so much, the Spurs just couldn't keep up with it. So Denver's won this series 3-1. It's a little misleading, but Denver won the series 3-1, and they're 1-1 when Wemby and the Spurs are full go and when Denver's at full go. So that's the first one. The Spurs win was so early, though, that it's another thing to kind of take as you will, I guess. Maybe you want to take it with a grain of salt. I guess it's fine. I think the game you most point to is probably the third game, the first game in Denver, the second game in Denver, I should say, where they went to overtime and the Spurs lost the game late. I think that's the game I would take the most seriously amongst the 4, where they both went bar for bar, and the Nuggets and Jokic especially made the plays late to win that game. So that's the one I would take with the most reverence. In this series, I think it's just overall too much depth for San Antonio, and I think that's the problem. I expect Jokic to show up. I expect Murray to show up. And for the Spurs, they've shown that anyone can show up. I think that's the problem here. Give me San Antonio in 7, and I think it'll be an incredible 7-game series. Plus, Denver being kind of sort of worn down from the first round series, I expect to be a bloodbath with Minnesota. I think that also may wear into this as well. Give me Spurs in 7. They go to the conference finals. Speaking of which, back to the East. The 2 top seeds in the Eastern Conference, the Pistons and the Celtics. And as much as I really like Detroit, I love their rebuild. I love how they've done this. I love how they basically played playoff-style ball all the time. And I'm sure Duncan Robinson's got some scores to settle with Boston, considering all of his time with the Miami Heat, where they had some wars in the playoffs, and they were enjoyable wars with Jimmy Butler and company in the East. So I'm glad that Duncan Robinson may have another shot at dealing with Boston and trying to eliminate them once again. But once again, my concern with Detroit is pretty simple. Do they have enough scoring to keep up with Tatum and Brown? I think that's going to be the big question here. The tail of the tape in terms of this season series, and obviously Tatum not playing doesn't really help matters here. They literally haven't played since the middle of January, and Detroit won 3 out of 4 of these games. They won the first one by 6, they lost the second one by 3, they won the third one by 7, and they won the fourth one by 1, but all of these games were played before January 20th. That's kind of rough. I don't know if I love that omen for the Pistons at all, but both these teams are healthy now, so at least it's a fair fight. I think Boston's winning this fight in 6. I think this is going to be a really fun series. I just don't think Detroit can keep up with them for a 7-game series. Give me Boston in 6. And now the best series in the playoffs proper the entire way through. Spurs, Thunder, conference final. We all know this by now. The Spurs won 4 out of 5. We don't put any stock into the 5th one because Oklahoma City didn't play anybody and San Antonio did what they were supposed to do. We do put stock in the first 4, where San Antonio won 3 of 4 and destroyed the Thunder in 2 of them. And obviously, the games in question, the NBA Cup, the game in Christmas, and the other game in between them, where San Antonio won all 3, were impressive tells of, the Spurs match up well with the Thunder. They have enough depth with them. They play good enough defense against them. They can deal with them bar for bar. The only kind of asterisk you can put on this is Jalen Williams not being around for these games. Okay, fine. I don't think that necessarily matters here. It's just the way San Antonio can match up bar for bar with the Thunder in terms of their depth. And with Wemby against Chet, obviously that's a major one. How will Jalen Williams be guarded? Because he is a factor, sure. That's going to be a big deal. Okay, fine. But then it's San Antonio's ability to get shots and get scoring and production from everyone. Whereas the Thunder is SGA and Jalen Williams, and then can you trust anyone else? Whereas San Antonio's shown the entire way through, it doesn't have to just be Wemby. Like I said all along, I think that's the way this goes. Spurs in 6. I think San Antonio will win one of the first 2 in Oklahoma City and basically win the rest of the home games. I think that's how this is going to go down. Give me San Antonio in 6 games to go to the NBA Finals and face the Celtics, where San Antonio and Boston have played twice this year. Obviously, the Spurs won both games. Obviously, Tatum didn't play in the first one. He did in the second one. And Jaylen Brown got himself ejected in the second one. He shouldn't have been. But as much as Boston shot, and they shot well in that game, San Antonio basically canceled them out and took care of business, beating by double digits. I think that's kind of, not to that extreme, is what happens here. Spurs, I think, win this series in 6 as well, win the NBA championship. I think Wembanyama wins both the conference final and finals MVP in the West. In the East, I think it'll be Tatum winning the conference finals MVP in the East. So I think that's how that's going to go for the award season and when it comes to the NBA playoffs for the playoff awards. So there you have it. I think that's how this will go. And before I get out of here and do the promos for other stuff, here are my picks for the regular season awards. They go like this. I'd pick Demi Avdija for most improved. He was an all-star this year. He showed himself to be a tremendous player. And Washington, you fumbled that particular situation hardcore. Avdija showed himself to be a very good player and a very good piece on a Blazers team that's ascending. Good on you. Rookie of the Year is easy. Cooper Flag. Let's keep it moving. Coach of the Year, Joe Mazzulla. I think he has shown himself without Jason Tatum for the majority of the year. For Boston, who we thought would basically be a Eastern version of the Pacers, we all thought that they would be kind of bad and have a rebuilding type of year. Instead, Boston's a title contender and the Eastern favorite. So that's impressive in itself. So Mazzulla wins the Coach of the Year. Sixth Man of the Year is pretty easy. It's Keldon Johnson. He has shown himself to be a very good piece off the bench for San Antonio for the entire year. Give me Keldon for Sixth Man of the Year. Defensive Player of the Year should be unanimous, and Victor Wembanyama is going to win that now that he qualifies, so he wins that. I would also vote for Victor to win the MVP because of the way he has played on offense and on defense. It's not just an offensive award, guys. I would go Wemby for the daily double, and for him to be just the 4th to win Defensive Player and MVP in the same year. Obviously joining 87 Jordan, 94 Olajuwon, 2021 Giannis. He would join that list of the elites to have a daily double type of season. Even if he doesn't, it probably will be SGA because of the efficiency, but I think defense matters, and that's why I think Wemby should win it. So there you have it. That is my predictions for the NBA award season and the playoffs. Coming up, Later this week will be the NHL version of this. The power rankings will be abbreviated, and then the predictions for the Stanley Cup playoffs will come with it. That probably comes tomorrow since the NHL still got business to handle in the Western Conference. Monday, Miami Mock Mondays will be its next to last version of it, and then next Thursday will be the final one. And then the Monday after that, the first Monday in May, will be the baseball version of power rankings, as now I can focus on that completely and probably do them weekly, similar to how I do the NBA and the NHL. Speaking of the latter sport, Vancouver. For one last time in the power rankings, you're going to be the first stop of my next train of thought.